Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for coming. And I'm assuming that you might have come across students who have been puzzling, or who have done unexpected things, or that you just felt you couldn't reach in some way. And I've been teaching in Japan for 15 years. But before I came to Japan, I was actually a health and I would say government policy researcher in Australia. And I worked for the national government, and in the morning I would get into work at about 8 o'clock. I'd scan the media. I would keyword search for anything that might bite the minister when they walked into Parliament later in the day. And I'd quickly scan. I would look for the issues. I would send out emails to people who were connected sort of throughout the department, get their input, write something up, write a few points, and all of that would be done and gone and approved by about four or five layers of people, and heading up to Parliament House by about 9:30 in the morning. And so all of that was done in about an hour and a half every morning. And that was one of the things I did. And the reason I was really good at doing that was because I'm dyslexic, and because I've also got ADD, and which means that I just tend to look really broadly at everything. Like I don't have boundaries in the way that a lot of people do have them. So I'm able to see links that sometimes people don't see, and that's and definitely being neurodiverse has helped me to do that. But it doesn't come without a cost as well. So let's just, I'm just going to go to my screen share now, and I'll just show you that now. There's my share screen. And oops, just a minute. I'm a bit new to this part of it. Sorry, one moment. And desktop one. And I'll just position this. Give me one moment while I position this. Actually, it's a bit small. Okay, look, I'm just going to share the whole screen. Just go like that. Okay, all right. So let's have a look at these conditions. Can everybody see this now?
Looking good. Looking
good. Okay, so here we have several conditions that fit together. The terminology of some of them is changing. The names might be changing. I think some of the kanjis are being changed into hiragana at the moment, and from shogai, I think it's been changed in some times to shogai and hiragana to soften it. And effectively, you've got these 5 neurodiversities, and what they are is dyslexia relates to information going in. So when you're reading, things may or may not be, they might be moving, the words might fade out, you might see them but you can't recognize what the words mean. But basically it's to do with reading and spelling. Then you've got dyscalculia, which affects your ability to use numbers, and this is why some of us live on timing things. Like I use an app called Time Timer, and I can set up multiple timers, and give myself, I'll just set one up now and show you how fast it is. I'm going to start one for now, and I'm going to create another one. New timer for 20 minutes. Okay, and then let's see my timers. And so I can have several timers running at once, and they can all be doing different things, and I can stack them up, and it's actually quite a useful tool for teaching. I'll get a better image up during a breakout room. So I'm not very good with time. I'm not very good with numbers, but I am extremely good with spreadsheets and organizing data and organizing using spreadsheets to manage millions of dollars, which I have done in the past. So I'm quite good at all of those kind of things. Dysgraphia, my handwriting is so bad that I try not to write unless I have to on a board. If I can, I avoid it altogether and just use PowerPoint or Keynote. When I was going to school, I constantly got school reports that said, could do anything if only she'd try, and work could be neater, and has ideas but doesn't put them down, spends most of the lesson erasing writing. And this went on like for my entire schooling. And by year 11, I'd worked out that if I wrote anything, it really didn't matter unless it was neat. So I had the opportunity to become a professional musician, and I said, bye. And I went out the door and I became a musician. And I can't read music, but I became a traditional Irish musician, and I won national competitions. And I was also a judge. And the odd thing too is that dyslexics often are meant not to be very good at rhythm, but I can talk and syllabalize in real time, which is a real advantage when I'm teaching a class, because I can teach students how to syllabalize words and phrases. But technically I'm dyslexic, so I'm not meant to be able to do that. I must be a broken dyslexic. That's because there's so many different versions of dyslexia. And we don't know very much about it because we don't really ask how it feels, and we don't ever ask what you see. So I've got the dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia going on. Dyspraxia is a difficulty with left and right and coordination of fine motor movements and gross motor movements. If any of you have ever had to do radio exercises, radio taiso in Japan, for me, that is an absolute nightmare, because I'm invariably in the teacher's line, and I'm invariably standing facing the kids who are going the opposite direction. And the only way I can do it is to stand behind somebody who really knows what they're doing. Then I can do it. But I cannot face people and mirror their actions. Can't do it. It's not going to happen. And then the other one is ADHD. And I found out I had that after one of my kids was diagnosed, because eventually it was a bit like looking in a mirror when I read the adult symptoms and thought, this would explain a lot. So this is how all of these things intersect. So let's look at a Japanese example. This was this image was made by Takano Todo, who is the son of Eiko Todo, who is the head of the Japan Dyslexia Society. And he made up this image. Dyslexia is connected to phonology and ability to recognize symbols, etc. But there are variants of dyslexia, and more are still being discovered. So try to think about being asked to read aloud when that's what you see. And you don't know that you're the only person who sees this. You think you are the only one, but in fact, there might be two or three other people in the classroom who see this as well. Or like my younger child, I whipped this up in a matter of seconds on her phone. This is what they see when they read. And we've had eye tests, etc. And they've had all sorts of things, all sorts of investigations. One of the few things that seems to help is screen glasses for the computer. With that slight brown filter, tended to make it a little bit easier for reading. But that could be what somebody is looking at when they're trying to read. And this is ADHD. Oh, hang on a second. Just a minute. Let me just see if did I share sound? I shared that. Can you hear sound? No? Okay, let me just go back to share. This window looks slightly different. Just a minute, I'll just unshare. Stop share. I'll just reshare that. All right. Share screen, and where's the
bottom left?
Bottom left. Bottom left. Where am I looking?
Bottom left of the check of the sharing palette, Alex.
Oh, okay. Oh, here we go. Right.
Both of them. There are
okay.
two. Of them.
Bottom. Okay, gotcha. Oh no, only one of them's going to let me do it at the moment. So
what?
Only one of them's going to let me do it. Don't know why. Okay. Anyway, well, let's see what happens. And right. And
okay, everyone, please put your pens down.
There we go. This is the other one.
And look at me.
So this is what ADHD is like.
Next, we're going to get our bottle caps.
So if you look at the bottom of the screen, there's the back seat there, and that's largely where the student's going to be. A student with ADHD is probably going to be towards the back because they are they're unpredictable, they're difficult in class, they might need an assistant with them, or they might need somebody watching them. And in elementary, junior high school classrooms, these kids tend to be towards the back so that they're not disrupting other kids. But the problem is they may not be able to see what's going on. So this is what uncontrolled ADHD is like, is literally, I'm hungry, I can see, oh, I like cats. Oh, look at that drawing that I've got there. Gee, I want to do one of these things. Oh, I like these bottle caps. Oh, I just heard a dog. All of this stuff is going on all the time. And the fish tank in the back of the room. And then the overwhelming feeling that 90% of what you're doing is going to be wrong. So you've got all of that going on. And then this is controlled ADHD.
Okay, everyone.
Still got some noise going on.
Put your pens down.
But you've got more ability to hear the teacher. You can filter some of it out.
Okay, next we're going to get out our bottle caps. So.
And then this is hyperfocus. Oh, hyperfocus is gone. And this is the underlying thing that goes on. This is what you have running through your head all the time. All of these things. And for one of my brothers is he's a mathematics genius. He is able to look at machinery and literally see it in his head. And if he sees a drawing of machinery, he can look at the drawing, assemble the machine in 3D in his head, and then he can turn it on, and then he can tell someone how the plans need to be altered before the machine's even built. But he could not read and write at school. So and he was constantly told he wasn't trying, he was not very bright, he wasn't able to do things. So this is this sort of self-talk that runs through the back of the mind of a person with ADHD. Do it again. And this is a quote I've got this one for you from today. This is something that was built by a friend of mine. And he's in his 50s and he lives in Japan now. Please read this. And he has no professional qualifications, but he is a brilliant engineer. He is an amazing historian. He is a rose genetic expert. And yeah, he's it's very difficult being excluded from education, and it's simply because of the way that the information was presented to him. And coming back to the online, this is where we are in a remarkable opportunity now to make a difference. Okay, and I'll just stop the share now. Okay, right. And can you see me again?
Yep.
Okay, I would like you to very quickly go into breakout rooms and talk about any feelings or ideas you might have had from watching those images and hearing those sounds, or anybody you might have been at school with, or anybody you might have taught, or something like that. I'd just like you to just reflect together on what that, on anything, any ideas that you had from that. So, Jose.
How many people would you like in the rooms, Alex, per room?
How many people do we have? We've got.
We'll be 15 if both you and I stay in these in the conference room.
Okay, all right. Let's make it into groups of 5, please.
Groups of 5, so 3 rooms.
Thank you.
Okay, so initially there might be some people that are only 3 instead of 5, but that I'll be manipulating those numbers. So
okay, thank you.
Okay, and how long would you like them in the room, Alex?
Okay, let's give people maybe 5 minutes.
You got it.
Okay, thank you very much.
5
And
minutes.
if somebody could decide, somebody can report back from the rooms too, please. Thank you.
Okay. So everyone choose a leader and maybe a secretary, or might be the same person. Just take notes and to report back to us when we get back. 5 minutes, and then it'll be 10 seconds when the rooms end. Okay, we good to go, Alex?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, sorry, I got 2 brand new people here. I got to recreate the room, sorry. Okay, here we go again.
I'm going to stick out of the breakout rooms if you don't mind, because I would like to have some dinner.
Go. Come on, Alex, come out. You can leave. I don't know why she hit that button.
Do you not want to perhaps pause this recording while the breakout room's in session?
Oh shit, completely forgot. But they're coming back.
Cut
They're
out.
back right now.
Right now? Oh, okay.
Right now. Trying to read what you wrote here. Okay, I'll ask about it later. Alex, you're muted.
Okay, thank you. I've unmuted myself. All right. So would anybody like to report back? Okay. Second group, group 2.
How about Bryce's group, whoever Bryce's group was?
I was with Gretchen, and
Okay.
it was really good because we all had a commonality of things, which made it very easy for us to be compassionate about anything and everything, which is really wonderful. And that's why we're here.
Okay. Madeline, were you in a different group?
Oh, microphone.
You're muted again.
So if in our group we were talking what each of our personal connections were, relatives or people who are close to us who have various forms of dyslexia. And it was interesting, a few people know that it was interesting that they'd never seen it presented in that way. And so it was insightful for them to see the presentation. Also, you know, some of us were talking about how possibly some of their students, they suspect their students may have difficulties, and that's why we're all here, because of relatives or our students.
Yes, yes. Okay. All right. And the other group was our group. So anybody from our group like to speak?
You're acting like my students.
They are. They're very quiet tonight. Yes.
Why are you
Yes, we
acting
are.
like my students? John.
Yeah, I told a story about someone that my wife had heard of that was dyscalculia, and then one of the other people in the group said that he, well, I won't say he, because you know, if he wants to identify himself, he can, but that he was too, and yeah, I mean, it's. This is probably a very undiagnosed problem here in Japan.
Oh, yeah.
And even if it is diagnosed or you suspect that it is, you know, the comment was made that you know, someone told parents, and the parents said, yeah, you know, like, what do I do? Or, you know, yeah, they basically just ignore it. So, yeah, but.
Okay, can I raise my hand? Here, I'm Mark Helgeson, and I actually know a lot of you all, and I'm dyscalculic, and I'm kind of, and you may or may not know this, I'm kind of high profile in Japanese English language teaching because I'm an author. But yeah, I'm learning disabled. And one of the ironies is my undergrad degree was in special ed, elementary education and special ed. And I wasn't diagnosed with dyscalculia until after I had gotten that degree. And then I was teaching, and my co-teachers who were special ed teachers said, Mark, you might want to take a test. Because they had picked up on it because I couldn't spell. And that is one of the things related to dyscalculia. I guess where I'm, the reason I'm bringing this up is in Japan, we don't talk about it, which is like probably true everywhere.
It is true everywhere.
And this is a huge problem.
Yeah, it is a huge problem because people don't intervene until quite late into the piece. And basically, from what I understand, I've talked to a lot of teachers, and I've taught at university, I've taught at high school, public high school, junior high school, and elementary school and kindergarten. And having two kids who are in this group as well, and also being in it, I can see the markings a mile off, and I can see the behaviour of different teachers about whether they can see what's going on or whether they and how they cope with it. And you might have noticed in I was using an unusual font. And the font I'm using is called Open Dyslexic Outer. I'll just very quickly share the screen back to my the front title. Just one moment. Share the screen back there. Screen. Okay, share, and let's have a look at. Is it coming up on here? Oh, look at that! It's not coming up on this computer. Rats. Hang on a second. I'll bring.
If you
Alex?
wanted to.
Oh, here. Can you see this now?
Yep.
Okay, you can see the screen now. So this font here, what you're looking at, that font, which is heavy at the bottom.
Yep.
This is called Open Dyslexic Outer. And the beauty of this font is that it shows you which way up it's meant to go.
Yeah.
And this is sort of actually quite a handy sort of page to look at. This is my award-winning poster from the JOUT 2019 conference. I won the poster session A with this picture, and next to me was a good friend, Kirika Kushiyama from Miyazaki University, and she had a similar poster in coming at it from a Japanese perspective and looking at these same issues and issues that happen to kids when they're in the classroom, basically. So this font is it's a weighted font. It's this version of it is free, and it's what it does do is that when students see it, they know automatically which way around the letters should go. And one of the strategies I use is to use bottle caps with this font on it for teaching kids ABC. And you might wonder, well, does it make a difference? Does it make a difference? And well, actually it does. And I'm now going to go across to my iPad to show you how much of a difference that it does make. I'm just going to come out of this share and go into, oops, I'll take that out of the way. Got to get to my stop share there. Okay, I'm just going to stop share there, and I'm now going to go to my iPad. Okay, it's basic and iPad by cable. Here we go. Oh yes, trust this computer. Yes, yes, trusting the computer. Right. Okay. Now here are the caps. And you can see the font on here. So this is a really, really simple technology. It's literally just these fonts are, it's a 60-point font, and I happen to have a very handy gadget, which is a circle cutter. And I simply cut out the letters, and the kids would arrange them to learn how to manipulate the letters. But does it work? Does it make a difference? Well, let's look at the difference between this and this. If you look at this thing here, this G, you have to have a piece of paper to know which way up it goes. But with the Open Dyslexic font, the minute you say to the kid, oh, they're heavy on the bottom, and the kids go, oh yeah, oh okay, and they just turn them by themselves. So they don't have to have a reference point to know which way up it goes. And if you've got a person who's dyslexic who actually has floating rotating letters, and I have seen them, I've seen lots of these kids, this is actually quite useful. Now, what happens later on? Let's look at this here. There are a few dyslexic handwritings in here. So please spot the dyslexic words. Anybody got to offer? Anybody?
Parents.
Parents, yes. What do you notice about the letters?
different sizes,
Yep.
uneven basing.
Yep. Okay. And what about the Japanese next to it? How does the Japanese look? Does the Japanese look a bit dyslexic as well?
Slanted basing,
Yep.
slanted horizontal lines.
Mm.
Looks like my writing.
Yeah.
That bad.
Now,
The word rabbit as well looks like the letters have been constructed in a different way.
yep, that's right. But look at the Japanese next to it.
Right.
Yeah.
The sizing and the proportions are off. The u is big and the sagi is small.
Yeah. And what about the letter rabbit, the word rabbit though? How does that look in comparison?
Spacing seems a bit wide.
Yeah, the spacing's a bit wide, but the letter size and the letter, sort of the height of the letters and things like that, how were they in comparison to the top sample?
Oh, I mean,
Rabbit's baseline seems to sag around the B's,
Yep.
and parents seems to be slightly more random.
Yeah. So the
looks like rabbit's got a fisheye lens on it or something.
that's right. Yeah. But in comparison to that, between these two students, one was at one elementary school, and that student was part of a cohort that spent 10 minutes at the beginning of the lessons in year 5 and 6, playing with the ABC caps. No writing, because at that point there was no writing at elementary school, and they simply played with arranging the ABC caps, sorting them into alphabetical order. And the other student was at another school which had no writing as well. And this is 3 years later. And 3 years later, the boy who had played with the bottle caps had very even writing. And the boy who didn't have any exposure, both of them had spent 3 years in junior high school writing with words. But the bottle cap has I can't believe the Instagram has dropped into there. The bottle cap student has maintained the shape all the way through after 3 years, and I've looked at this again, and the changes in letter shape simply from having played with the bottle caps has lasted for years. And those kids have they have reliable, easy to read letters, compared to the kids dyslexic kids who haven't had that kind of exposure. So I've increased the number of kids who are playing with bottle caps, and I'm running a couple more trials in schools on this.
So it was a bit of a trick question. The rabbit one is not the one that has anything. That's the one that's actually closer to what you'd expect it to be, and I was looking for something weird in the rabbit, and I wasn't finding it.
That's right. There is nothing. Oh, hello, Bryce.
So I've been teaching elementary school primarily here in Japan, grade 1 onwards, and doing handwriting stuff from grade 1 in the environments I've been in. So some things like rabbit didn't really strike me as being too strange because of what I've seen. But I used quite a few items from a woman, a specialist in orthography in Melbourne, named Alison. Her stuff is aimed at helping children with different learning differences. And I found a lot of her stuff is very applicable, even for the EFL student, the standard EFL student, because it's clearer to follow. It is more consistent in trying to achieve an end. What happens? So I'm hearing about the letters or the bottle caps. That something is really wonderful, because I've tried to use that sort of aspect anytime, even with younger children, just being introduced to orthography and trying to learn how to decode and encode things and understand what's going on around them, helping them to focus. So it's really lovely to see this coming in more formally in here, because I like using a lot of her stuff when I'm allowed to.
And that is an issue when you're allowed to. So I had no opportunity to try these kids with writing when they were any younger. So, but now the kids are in, now junior high, elementary kids are doing writing in year 5. And they are also studying Ramaji in year 3 for the purposes of social studies for keyboarding.
Yep.
And so that, but the Monkosho has connected the software that's being used for the year 5s, like the stroke order, and in year 5 and the stroke order in year 3 are now going to be, they're now the same. So that's a big step up too. So the kids aren't learning a different way to write W in year 3 and then a new way to write W in year 5. That's changed. And if kids have already learnt to read, learnt to write those letters, then teachers don't really bother them. They just let them get on with it.
Yeah.
But this is one font that will help certain students. And I have watched students writing letters like B and D and rubbing them out and rewriting them and rubbing them out and rewriting them and flipping them. So and I've got various examples of that too. Let's have a look in. This is actually a new font which is being used. It was designed by somebody at New Horizon. And so what I've been doing with this one is this font, you can actually write words and names and things. So it's really nice because it shows students exactly which way the lines are meant to go. It's very, very intuitive. And to help students that, students who don't know where words are meant to sit, well then a nice way to do this is to simply blow it up, put a line of glitter pen along the bottom of it so they can feel where the letter stops, so they can get the sort of 3D sensation of it. So this is sort of good for younger students. This is actually really useful. And I've seen an amazing response from like whole class cohorts of kids are interested in writing, practicing letter shapes using this. So this is a really, really big innovation. I think this is about as exciting as the innovation of the open dyslexic font is for the English language. And let's go from, oh, here's another example of dyslexia. This is from a friend's son, and he had he's got dyslexia, and this is about a year ago. And then he's already 7, and he's been having the best training that the Australian school system could offer, and they're just not getting there yet. This is his ability to draw at the same time. This is his ability to focus on that kind of a brain function. But then this is his ability to write when he's doing practicing. This is with having a bit of one-to-one tutoring time. But this is what happens when he tries to apply it. Mm. And he's now 8. And so far, they're just nothing is working in that respect. It's getting slightly better, but you can imagine how frustrating that would be for a very articulate little boy who simply can't write at the speed that his brain wants to go. Mm. And so this is another option is, I'll just turn this around. Another option is color. Now, some people poo-poo the idea of color, but I think color is extremely important. And I have watched students write for the first time ever when they've been presented with a different colored worksheet and write extensively. And the other day I got students who are doing broadcasting, students who have difficulty with reading aloud, and they're always staggering over their broadcasts. And so I'd already color tested with these kids to see which color worksheet would be the best for them. And they put their white paper into a blue folder, like a blue clear folder. And this kid read aloud fluently. And I was sitting with a bunch of teachers who were listening, and one of the teachers said, "Oh, Yokuyomata." Sort of like she was surprised that he read it well, but he did it. And so I went back and gave him a sort of an air high five that doesn't touch, of course, because of Corona. But they were both really impressed that they were able to do this. They were able to read more efficiently because of simply by putting the white paper into a clear film, it became easy to read. And when they saw it, they both sort of said, oh, Yomi Yasui. So that was sort of easy to read. I can read it. And so I think this is something that isn't being looked at enough. There is a lot of argument about it, but the argument often comes from people who want to shore up a position that, oh no, we must do this in a particular way. We can't do anything. We can't step off the line and go to something different. Now here, I want to look at a different kind of a font, and this is the difference when you, like, here is just plain white, and this is the top one of the two is a standard font, and the second one is when you change the spacing. So the font is actually the same size, but it's simply the spacing has been changed. So what do you think in terms of readability? Any comments?
The space helps a lot. And again, it's one thing for me I've always used when working particularly with students to try and allow everyone access to materials. So I've looked at a lot of fonts, dyslexic related fonts, all that sort of thing. And to me, junior high school too, even with some of the adult students I've had at Semongako, things like that, important to think readability over space constraints is far more important.
That's right.
Alex, I have a question from the chat.
Thank you.
From John, maybe, I don't know, about 1 minute ago. Is stuttering related? I have a first year who stutters badly and another who is only moderate.
I don't know the actual connections, but I do, what I have done with students who are very, very hesitant to speak and or have had a very, very quiet voice, I've tried the trick that I saw on the movie The King's Speech, which is you put the headphones on somebody and you get them and you play music at them, which has no soundtrack, like just music without any words to disturb, and you play it really loud, and then you get them to try and read, and it seems to short circuit the sense of anxiety. And I usually use that as a speech technique, for speech training for kids, and they develop really, really confident, loud voices, even students who are terrified. But I can't say if it, exactly whether the connection between stuttering and this part of the neurology. But yeah, I'm happy to ask people and to find out about it. So
that would be great.
Yep, and I'll in just one moment I'll show you another thing. But this is what I mean about color. This is using a slightly different color. Now I had showed this kind of color changing system to somebody who said, oh, I've been working with computers for 40 years, and this is the first time I haven't seen my eyes haven't hurt when I've looked at a screen. And that was simply by changing it. So if you've got, if any of you have got Word open at the moment, anybody got a computer in front of them and you've got Word? Yep. You can open up Word, Microsoft Word. And I'm just going to stop this share and go to my Word version. And so, well, we've got a few comments in there. Okay, we've got people asking about the names of the fonts too and things like that. And people, please save things. That would be really good. Save at any time if you want to. Now let's go to this next screen share.
The question was for the name of the font with the arrows.
Oh, the arrows font. Now that one, I don't know if it's commercially available. It's called, when it comes up on my computer at work, it's called NH Handwriting Light. So it's New Horizon Handwriting Light. And if anybody's got a hotline to New Horizon, to the company that produces that, they literally, this is an amazing thing. And I would really be hoping that what they will do is to make it widely available, because this is a breakthrough font. Open Dyslexic was originally designed as dyslexie by a designer who who had dyslexia, and he thought he decided to monetize it heavily. It's very, very expensive. And what happened then was instantly a whole lot of other people were sort of like, this is too important to be locked up only for the wealthy. This needs to be out there. And so a whole lot of other people started making a clone version and improving on the original. And so he's still out there getting his money from his royalties. But I think if he'd actually done the altruistic thing and said, I'm gifting this to the world, he would have been on a talk circuit for the rest of his life. Mm. And he would have been a hero, but instead he's charging a lot of money for it. And I have a real problem with it because this Open Dyslexic font is a game changer. And so is the New Horizon Arrow font is extremely good. Now I'll just go to this thing here. Let's move this out the way and let's have a look at New Horizon, and I'll screen share. So, and I'd really like people to try to practice this if you can. And share. Oops, I'll just bring this in. Let's make this bigger. Sorry, I'm a little bit of the novice of this. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Perhaps for future reference as well, on your page on the OTJ's WiseCat site,
mm-hmm.
could we perhaps get a set of links or something to
Sure.
these fonts where they can be downloaded from and used from,
yep.
so that everyone can just have that one-stop shop?
Yep, we'll do.
Let's organise that. Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I just want people to try this out. So if you've got your computer open, let's try this. Okay, so okay, let's look at the. I'm going to have to make this smaller. Just a minute. Come off. Oops. Sorry. Just give me one moment to resize this. Sorry, while everybody else has been doing their online, I've been in a classroom, so I haven't. Okay, now this is one I did for CTAR for a talk the other day, and thank you for the people who've come to both of these workshops. CTAR were very kind to give me a very long slot for this. So here we've got a basic document, and so this is just an Apple system font. And so what I'm going to do is go to the design menu. So click on design menu, and first thing I'm going to do is change the color. And so here, and if you've got your computer out, let's go follow along with me. So I could change the color to blue background, or I could change the color to yellow. And the color is going to be individual to each person. And when I'm doing long editing, I find that this is actually a very nice background for me to use. This orange color background is really, really helpful. So I tend to sort of go between orange and that green. Depending on how bright the room is, if the room is really bright, I use the orange, but if the room is not so bright, I tend to go with the green. But I have seen people use much darker backgrounds than that. Is anybody able to do that themselves, or anybody? So literally the color is going to be unique to you. And now let's have a look at the font. Let's go back to the font and
changing the background color is much easier on the eyes.
Isn't it? Yeah. But everybody was probably finding a different color will suit them. Much easier on the eyes.
Alex, so just the thing that would perhaps help me is if you could actually hit the zoom at the bottom right of your WordPress screen and
this thing?
Make the document a bit bigger.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being the frontal lobe for me. Okay, so let's have a look at this. Let's see what happens when we change the font a bit up. So let's just change up, and I'm going to go to, where is it? See if I've got This one. So I've stolen my husband's computer for this because it's the big, basically. Oh, it's not responding as easily when it's on Zoom. Font, I'll go through this way. It's very slow.
Take your time. It is, the computer's doing a lot right now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's doing a lot because it really isn't, it's not even searching for things.
I could tell you what it's actually doing in the background. It's slowing it down. It's really important to the discussion, so it's okay.
All right. Okay, this computer unfortunately doesn't have the exact font I want, but what I'm going to do with this one anyway is I'm going to alter the spacing. So I've right-clicked on the font and I'm going to go to Advanced. And then here, I'm going to go to Spacing and I'm going to expand the spacing. And I'm going to take it out by 1.3. So we've still got the annoying little red lines there. I'm just going to tell it to ignore all of those. Ignore all. No, well, it's ignoring one of them, but it.
Select them all first, Alex, and then ignore all.
Okay, right. Okay. Okay. And now it won't let me do it.
You just have to move your cursor slowly.
Okay. Slowly, and it'll let me do it.
Well, it'll let you go down. Try again. Now move the cursor slowly to where you want to take it.
Oh, I just wanted to get rid of this red line underneath, which would be ignore all, but it's not.
So I can't really see very well the text, but just move the cursor slowly to ignore all and select it with the cursor.
Yeah, there's no option at the moment.
Okay, well then.
Yeah, so we just have to put up the little, we'll just have to put up the little lines. But you can see the difference that makes. Which is easier to read now, this one or this one?
I'm sorry, which one and which one?
The top one or the one underneath it?
Might want to make them a bit bigger.
For me, the one underneath it.
Yeah, the one underneath it. Okay, that's interesting.
But I'm dyslexic, so you know, hey.
So
this is interesting.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. Well, this is the thing. Everybody has a different version of what they see, and like the bulk of people are going to look at and say, "Oh, that's easier to read when the spacing is bigger." So I've been the one I've been using at school is called UD Digital Kyokusho, and I'm just about to drop this picture of this into the system here. Okay. So I've just been flat out today and didn't get to scan this.
That's just a personal observation while Alex is getting ready. When I was growing up in the Philippines, there was absolutely no discussion of any of this when I was growing up. And granted, that was 35 years ago. But when I got to Canada, that's when I started hearing about dyslexic kids. But in the Philippines, in Asian countries, there's just no discussion, no awareness at all of this.
Alex, I just put the link to the UD Digital Kyokusho Tai in the chat.
Oh, good on you. Okay. And I'm just going to put this document into where we can see it. Actually, we can just look at it here. I'm just going to quickly go back to the iPad for a moment.
Maybe I can just add here like an odd little story. I did my graduate thesis on this, on like line spacing and leading and stuff like that with ESL students. The thing that shocked me the most was students, I don't have glasses. I've never had glasses my whole life. Students with glasses actually wanted smaller font, and students without glasses preferred the bigger font. So on average, student with glasses wanted 14 point pixels, and students without glasses on average wanted 16-point pixels.
That's very interesting.
Wow.
Very, very interesting, because I know that with when I worked on the International Year for the Older Person, we came up with the requirement that everything for anybody over over 50 needed to be in at least 14 point. But it's interesting that you got 14 and 16.
Yeah, it was on web devices, because the specifics of the paper was fonts on a pixelated screen, and yeah, I was really shocked by the results. It could be, I mean, one of the things is it could be that a lot of the kids that didn't have glasses needed glasses, so they just didn't know it yet. You know what I mean? So.
You're also talking about nearsighted people versus older people who are farsighted, right?
Right.
There are different kind of glasses for the elderly.
Yeah, well, but theoretically though, everybody's glasses are adjusted to suit their situation for what they're attempting to do. But the information coming out of the British Dyslexia Association was to increase the point size, and to also increase the distance between rows. And in this sample, you can see on the top of it, top of this page, you can see there's this thing's called UD Digital Kyokusho Tai font, and it's and this is directly underneath it is a standard font which a lot of Japanese teachers use. And so the UD font has become available in the Windows 10 upgrade. So most schools have now got this available, and I would absolutely recommend that people use it. I have tried out dropping worksheets into this font. The English version of it is really acceptable in terms of readability. So it's a non-serif font. It's very easy to read. And the Japanese version, teachers and students have said, hey, that's really good. That's really easy. And a lot of teachers have set their default to it. And the bulk of the new textbooks, because it's called a textbook font, bulk of textbooks across Japan are now being done in this font. But the reaction of students to it has been extremely positive. So if you are using any Japanese in any of your materials for students, please look for this the Morisawa font, and use that if you can. That would be very much appreciated.
Alex, I have a question from the chat. Okay, so from Yoshiko Sensei at 9:01 p.m. Alex, do you think the space size, space between lines, makes any difference as well?
Yes, it does. Yeah, it does make a difference. It makes it easier to read. And the problem that will create is that you have to think very carefully about what you're going to have on the page and where, because when you've increased the space size, you're going to have less room for fitting things in. So you need to be more succinct. But if they can't read it, you've defeated the purpose. So yeah, go with the increased space size. Sometimes I will play with the UD digital font. I will play with like 11.5 to stop it sort of completely jumping to a really, really large spacing, because it's a bit temperamental. Yeah,
Alex,
the linings does.
Little follow up on that question. Typically in web design circles and things like that, you might actually see people saying, if you have a bigger font, make them closer together in terms of the line height, reduce the line height, and make those lines closer together. But if you have a smaller font, expand it out and add some more white space between those lines. Would you say that that's good for dyslexics, etc., or is that just bad advice from a universal accessibility point of view?
Well, I don't know whether they've is that person looking at it purely from a design thing, or have they actually consulted with people who are dyslexia experts?
This is coming purely from the design side.
Okay, yeah. I wouldn't really go with that. I'm just going to drop this into the chat. Go, the chat, go on, chat's going to be, okay, I'm just going to stop sharing that screen. Actually, why don't I just share this? No, I'm going to drop it in the chat. Here we go. This is from the, and I'll bring it back up here. Share screen again. Part of screen. Okay, so here is this British Dyslexia Association. Yes, I'll agree to that. Right, can we see this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's make it a bit bigger, zoom in. Okay. So yeah, their style guide suggests, here's the stuff about the sizing, Adam. So into
right. Spaces should be wider than the into letter spacing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Line spacing. Yeah.
Headings and structure. It'll be that next section.
Next session, and keep away from small caps and things like that. Keep away from underlining and italics as well. Okay, headings and structure.
How about bold?
Yeah, it says for headings, use the fonts 20% larger. If further emphasis is required, use bold.
Okay, bold's okay then.
Yep. So I've put this into the links, and now here we talk about color, and this is interesting. The red, green, pink thing, avoid particular colors, and I'm going to show you an example of what happens when you've got people with sort of color issues, because it is entirely possible to have, on top of your dyslexia and your ADHD, to have color blindness as well. So you can actually win the lottery, and I've seen people who've done that. And I have to be very careful in how I you know, what I do basically to do that. So, okay, AirPlay, here we go, iPad, and screen mirroring, okay. Zoom, and use iMac, and okay,
Yeah,
I've now
the other things it was saying on that page that you just showed us before, with the spacing between paragraphs. And I found that reading all sorts of things as well, that when I'm reading something that just has indents and no line break, no full line break between paragraphs, it annoys the hell out of me.
Yeah, that drives me nuts. I can't read it. This is what we're looking at here, is we're looking at the normal color range. And now I'm going to add the most common version of color asynchrony. Look at what happens. So what a normal vision person is seeing the colors above, and a person with color asynchrony is now seeing these things. And let's look at the little photo symbol there. And this can have profound consequences for people. Let's have a look at my poster here.
Yeah, if you're going to tell somebody, look for that green icon.
Yeah, exactly.
Go, wait, that's a brown icon.
Yep, that's right. So it's yeah, it's really going to change things dramatically. And one of the things I found in this was this thing is called CV Simulator. CV Simulator is the name of that one. I'm going to stop that share, and I'm just going to go to a color vision thing to show you what I found with this. Okay, and go to color vision, color and blackboards. Okay, all right, share screen again, and let's go to the iPad. Okay, here is a normal kanji drill. And what you can see here is you can see the numbers. You can see 1, 2, 3 showing you the stroke order. And you can see that the things that are happening are highlighted in colors as well.
Oh.
Okay, but what happens when you get somebody who's got color asynchrony? You get this.
Yeah.
Now, look at the color of the Suki, you know, the moon kanji part of it. You've got the owl, and then you've got the moon kanji under that 1, 2, 3. Look at strokes 8, 9, and 10, and then look at stroke number 1. They appear to be the same color.
Right.
So this is I think this is a huge issue for people when they're designing. You really need to be aware of it. There's a nice set of colors, and I'll drop a link into the chat, into the page in the next day or so, of safe colors for webs, which are differentiated enough across all 3 forms of color asynchrony that a person can tell the difference between them. So this is it's very important. And what happens when you get a blackboard of this? This is one of the things which has been developed. The top row is a particular chalk called the color vision chalk, and I just happen to have one I prepared earlier. I'll just grab it.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I've actually noticed that at the university where I'm working, whenever I'm in a chalkboard environment, the red chalk sucks. It just doesn't show up. So.
Here it is. No, this is called eye chalk.
Ah, that's the good stuff.
Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, so eye chalk. It's only a couple of $100 and schools are now buying it. So it's safe for, I'll put my headphone back on. It's safe for use for people with color asynchrony, and it distinguishes quite slightly. So the one at the bottom is normal chalk. But what happens when you get a really dirty blackboard? And so you can see here normal chalk, and then the color, then just the color asynchrony. But then here, look at this. This is normal chalk on a dirty blackboard. And you've got if you've got red-green issues, look what happens to the word red. And that's taken from about taken from 2 meters away from the board. So if you've used red colored chalk and you've got a kid up the back row who's used to making mistakes, so he's up the back to fly under the radar, that's what's going to happen. So if you're using a red, certain backgrounds and you're using red over it, that's what's going to happen. So the information is just going to vanish.
Actually, Alex, yeah, while you were away, I was just saying that when I use red chalk at my university, it looks just like that.
Yeah.
You can barely see it at all.
Yeah.
It's useless.
This is when you have a person who has T-type, I think it's T-type, is it T or P? Get the right program, kid.
Oh, and
yeah,
Bill is asking in the comments, how about whiteboards?
Whiteboards. Oh, whiteboards. I hate whiteboards. Problem with whiteboards is that if you, when you use whiteboards, if you use red as a highlighter on a whiteboard, you're using black pen and you're using red as a highlighter, they will both be the same color. So anybody who's got, with the 1 in 12, who's got color asynchrony is not going to be able to see what's important and what isn't. If you have teachers marking things in red pen or red pen on depending on the strength of the red pen, the kid, when they look at their work, they're not going to be able to distinguish clearly between what the teacher has written and what the student has written. So they're trying to second guess all the time. I feel really sorry for these kids. Because to a person with normal vision, it's very easy to see. So one of the things I did in a classroom was talk about the issue of colour, and I explained to them, the kids, that I had 3 aunts who had colour issues, and we came up with a solution in the classroom that what would happen was that on the board, the chalk that was on the board would be written up, the name of the colour would be written in Japanese on the board and kept there. And after we did this discussion, and I used that application to show them what it might look like to a person who had colour issues, such as my 3 aunts who really did have colour issues. How could we make it easy to, how could we make this easy to read? And so the students came up with the solution of don't use colour, use symbols. Use 1, 2, or 3 to highlight, okay, look at point 1, look at point 2, look at point 3. And don't use colour, basically, is what the students came up with. Unless you really know that it's safe for everybody, because it would be unfair not to do that. So,
Bill,
yeah.
did you have a follow-up question to that about the whiteboards?
Yeah, well, I was just wondering, is there like blue or green? I mean, I was told that like blue is not really good for a lot of colorblind people. So I was just wondering if there are other colors that would be good. Like most universities have blue, green, orange, red, black.
Yeah, orange is very hard to see from any distance from the board. For me, the test is like, put it on the board, go to the back of the room, to the furthest back student that you can possibly find, and sit in their chair. That is always my suggestion is to take the chair test. Go and sit in the
back of the room and teach from the back. I read everything on the board and I go way in the back.
Oh, that's interesting.
I always do that because a lot of kids who sit in the back are the ones who want to avoid being close to the teacher.
Yeah.
And
they're the kids who've had the most difficult times in the classroom. They really have had a difficult time. And they've tried to, because they are in constant fight or flight mode all day.
Yeah.
They are, and what happens to their bodies is they get flooded with cortisol, because your body generates cortisol when you are anxious, when you're in that situation. And if you continually have your body flooded with cortisol, it will have long-term health implications for you. There is a study I've seen which is that people who do not have literacy are likely to die a few years earlier than their literate cohort. And that's a sort of that's a multiple country study right across Asia. It also had other people from other countries, like lots and lots of doctors, all conferring that not being able to read is a health issue. Because
I mean, I often write in very large fonts, or large letters, I should say. And of course, the students up front are like, why are you writing so big? But I notice the kids in the back are like, I can actually read this.
Yes.
So I do it more for myself because I'm getting older and my eyes are, but because I often write things and then go in the back room, I want to be able to read it. But the kids in the back also appreciate it. But I was just wondering about colors more so, now that you mentioned like red is not a good color.
Well, for certain students, it won't be a good color. And we don't know, like you will never know who's got, in general, you will never know, because the issue of people's, that kind of privacy information is extremely carefully guarded.
Yeah, I completely understandable. I was just thinking, okay, well, when I go back in the classroom, and even when I make slides, I should probably be more aware of color issues. Often people have told me blue is not good, and I knew orange sucked anyways, but I didn't realize red was bad.
As a general rule, Alex, can you give a general recommendation? For example, if it's a green blackboard, generally, white is better than yellow or yellow is better than white. So those sort of guidelines.
I would have, until recently, I would have said that the easiest to read colors are white, you know, like white and yellow would be the easiest to read color.
Okay.
But it's, even so, there may be somebody who breaks the system, and I'm just going to, I'm just checking this thing here. Okay, have a look at this. Have a look at this image. Share screen, iPad again. Okay. Okay, have a look at this. I'm just going to move from it slightly off. Now, this was a thing I did with while studying universal design with a student as a topic, and that was the order in which of colors that were easy to read for that student.
Easiest is at the top or at the bottom?
Easiest is at the top. Easiest color to read was normal bright pink chalk, and followed by second was the brown version of this eye chalk, and the third was the science purple, science chalk. There is science chalk. You'll find it in your local newsagents. Science chalk, and the fourth easiest to read was white. And then fifth was blue, sixth was green, and yellow was the bottom.
Weren't you saying, though, that this is relatively unique to each individual?
Yeah. So this is the difficulty. You just don't know. And I think that's where you have to look at how people react to what's on the board and see if they're picking things up or not. See if they're responding the same way. Because if people try to keep their... they try to keep anything that makes them different off the radar. In general, is what happens.
Very much. Yeah.
It's very interesting. Actually, I find that first one, one of the hardest to read. Number 1 and number 3 are the hardest for me to read from here.
Yeah. Yep. And when I changed it to when we went after that, we went with that particular font, and we also noticed that some people using a chalk holder, you get a better result, and that was the case with this student. Once they used chalk holder, you can see there's a little circle next to where the chalk holder was used, and you can see the difference in the shape of the letters. So that made a big difference to that student. So that was just sort of a experiment thing. Another thing, let's have a look at the screen. Yay!
Oh.
Please check your screens, people. Please go and sit in the seat. If you're going to hybrid or synchronous or whatever, please go and sit in their chairs and have a look from that point of view. Just see what happens. It's really, really important because kids are not going to say, "Oh, oops," you know. They're not going to criticize teachers. Here we go. And have a look at this. This is the same blackboard from 3 different positions, and this is
right.
And look at the and this is in about, I took this in about January, and most boards are oriented to get a particular amount of sunlight, and so the students on the right hand side of the classroom are not going to be able to see anything.
Yeah, I make it a habit of always asking students who can see, who can't see, and checking, like you say, the right-hand side particularly.
Yeah.
Because it's a real problem.
Yeah. But the problem is that students will not want to say anything rude to you, and they are going to say, "Fine, nani monai, nani," and like these kids say this, and then I walked and I was watching the body language, and because I do a lot of team teaching, I have this luxury of being able to watch what people are doing and watching their faces and watching their reactions. Whereas when you are always in the front position doing something, you don't have that luxury.
A lot comes down to habit. Because of my background, it's habitual for me to check to make sure students can see in whatever environment I'm in, because I've worked in that kind of environment, both team teaching and solo.
Yeah.
If kids can't see things, you're wasting their time.
You're absolutely wasting everybody's time. But again, they won't necessarily tell you honestly.
That's why you ask first and check anyway.
Yeah, that's right. You do. You literally have to check anyway. And so now this is the difference with this is the difference that curtain management makes. And I know Adam's probably seen. I think he's seen this before. So this is with the top one. This has got no curtains at all. And the middle one is with the thin curtain drawn. And then the bottom one is with the thick curtain drawn to about 1.3 meters, just sort of maybe 2 meters, and then the thin curtains drawn. And at that point, all students can access the board.
Yeah.
And I can't stress how important this is, because you could have a student could lose if they're in the same chair for a number of weeks or months. They can lose weeks and weeks of work.
Yeah, very easily.
Alex, does the research say anything about these neurodiverse kids as they get older? We mostly teach kids who are 17, 18 years old, 19 in our universities. If they were having problems at 9 and 10 years old, were those problems starting to be mitigated by their own brain growth?
No, they're not actually. That's interesting. I was reading a study about this just the other day, and they basically the problems kick in as soon as they go into the formal educational environment. And a study showed that by the time kids were in year 2, they were actively avoiding teacher interactions and actively avoiding tasks, because the problems with dyslexia or maybe a combination of dyslexia and hyperactivity were so great they were just trying to avoid it. And that was a longitudinal study of a huge number of kids. I'll dig that one out afterwards. So that showed that kicked in by then. Kicked in by year 2 elementary school. And another study I read showed that these kids, this gap starts to open up. And then there's a little blip in the system when kids are about 10 or 11. And I've noticed this in elementary school, that suddenly these kids seem to be sort of watching and paying more attention. This is particularly for the hyperactive ones. They're able to get this window of focus. But by then, everybody else has already learnt classroom routines. They've already learned all these things that the kids with learning disabilities haven't, or learning differences haven't. And that gap starts to increase. And unless there is really active addressing of the issues and active remediation, that gap is there permanently.
Yeah.
Adam, did you want to? Oh, sorry, Alex.
No.
Adam, did you want to say something? Go.
See, Matt was just sending me a message privately, but I think it's a great question that should be part of the main session. In Word, PowerPoint, etc., what are the best fonts to just use that are pre-installed without having to do any jiggery-pokery to get them running? Or just rules of thumb on some simple things that we can just be mindful of when we're making our things tomorrow before we can get these extra fonts installed, etc.
Yep. Okay.
What would your advice be?
No, definitely use a non-serif font. I would also stick with a dark background. Personally, I haven't found any kids who can't read the blackboard. That dark green is a reliable color. It's much more reliable than white, because white will tend to wash out to a sort of a strange grey color. It's actually really hard to read. And I don't know if Mark's still here, but Mark, I think, had a workshop about the try to keep your letters down to a minimum. I broke all the rules when I used that quote from my friend today, but
I think that session's coming up on Friday.
Oh, is it? Yeah. So, I've been following that one. Try and keep it simple. Keep it as simple as possible, and keep the images really big. And if you've got students who are with who have autism spectrum disorder, what I'm learning from those students and from literature, from the students and from their teachers is that when I introduced new words with a photograph, the students retained the words. When I introduced new words with any kind of a cartoon image or any kind of drawing image, they did not retain the words. So when in doubt, use a photograph, and when you can, use a photograph of people who are well known. And I will just dial up how I do that. Well, if you want to have a look at the questions or anything for the moment, I'll just dial this up, and I can have a look at this too. This is something I do. I use, this is an old version, but the concept is there. So I watched a presentation on using codes, error codes, and I thought, right, I'm going to try this out on junior high kids, and it works like a dream, absolutely works like a dream. But the problem is I don't need to teach them university level codes which only translate to English. They need something that's bilingual, and it's very, very just to use a straight number order. The number order I've used is the order number in which I noticed that they made the most common mistakes. So number 1 mistakes is punctuation, number 2 is upper or lower case, 3 is the spelling mistake, 4 is the articles, and then 5 was they haven't read the question carefully. They need to read so I often encourage kids, okay, read the question twice. Whenever you do a test in particular, read the question twice. Yeah. Question?
I actually have been for years now using that similar approach, but I actually make like a small card which the kids can carry with them to use all the time.
Yep.
And also another copy of it inside their front cover of their English file.
Yeah,
so
the same here.
They do anything to reading and writing.
Yep.
I can mark what the problem is, and then they can work on it, how they approach and ask for help or give help where they need it.
Yep.
And I do that from basic grade 3 onwards of elementary school.
Yep, that's high five on that one. Yeah, I'm doing the same thing, and the kids, the junior high school kids I'm working with have all got they've got the page, and they've also got it stuck in, but it's also in a color that they have chosen as easy to read.
Good.
So
I used to get my guys to fill in an example of the mistake as well, so they actually see a concrete example of what it means as well as the information there. But like I've been mainly able to do that in elementary school rather than junior high school, where I've been working.
So I thoroughly recommend this, and I've had students say, oh, I can't do English, and I've looked at their exam papers and I've said, this is all perfect, the only thing that's missing is a full stop. And they're like, what, is that all? What, really? Sort of, and then they go, oh, okay. And then and so then they run back to the teacher to see if they can get something changed from a complete fail to maybe a partial fail on that question, because really, if you get a complex grammar point, it's, a kid deserves a triangle. Triangle if they've got the rest of it done.
It's also fun when they get to mark each other's work for mistakes with this sort of thing. Because once kids build up a bit of confidence and ability, if you have the classroom organisation right, it's a real buzz for the kids. So, hey, I'm actually as good as you are, if not better, at some of this stuff. And that's really empowering.
Alex, when you're ready to take open questions from the floor, tell me and I'll give everybody the protocol.
Okay.
But I don't know if you have more stuff to show us.
Right. Yes, I have one more. I've got one more thing to show you. Actually, have people seen the pictures from the UK Home Office? They're in the chat of the actual session. Have people looked at those yet? If they haven't, we can quickly look at those before we go to the open chat.
And we have a question from John Helwig from the chat. The image previous are you referring to the image just previous, John? That gray bilingual page, is that what you're talking about? The image previous just now, Alex, that looked like It was talking about the fonts.
I have that.
John would like that available as a PDF if that's possible.
Yep, I'll yes, I'll update that one. I'll get my latest version of it, and I'll put a copy in, because I would like to see people using that. So, and then perhaps if there's you know, other people like I'm sorry, I can't see your name right now, Bryce. I think it's Bryce. Yeah, Bryce is also using this similar thing. Maybe people can look at it and say, okay, well, what are the priorities that you would use if, you know, in elementary setting, in junior high setting, in senior high setting, we could sort of adjust it up, because at the moment mine is adjusted to junior high. So I think that would be a really nice sort of joint project, an error checking thing, which is easy to use, that doesn't rely on additional codes, because the additional codes make it a lot harder. This is one book I would like to promote. Nice book, something to spend your budget on if you have a budget. Very nice publication. And okay, let's have a look at now these posters are from the UK Home Office. And so they cover 6 different areas. And something that I would really like to see have done is us to look at the issue for people who have hearing issues, or also for people who have dyslexia or ADHD. They may also need to hear things rather than just be able to see them. If you're designing for asynchronous work, you might want to put a voice recording in, or to set up those codes that allow a screen reader to allow a system to read aloud. It's where you can click on a microphone and hear it. So let's have a look at these. Let's go to, this is for dyslexia. So this is a very nice system which has got do's and don'ts.
Yeah, a whole stack of these documents I think would be great if we could keep them up on the OTJ site.
Yeah, I think these are the kind of thing that need to be up at the top level in the planning sort of things, because these have been designed by an expert committee in the UK. The UK have rolled them out for use across all of their publications. So I used to work in a government area doing things, and we did sort of like focus testing and stuff. So I know that these kind of documents will have been through the same kind of focus testing I used to do for public health stuff. So they're really good. They're really beautifully laid out. So we've got dyslexia. So don't use underline, etc., or write in capitals. Do normal stuff. Just keep it normal, and put the things in there so someone can click on it. You can just, so they can basically click on it and listen to it. With the dyslexic, that's really important. But I also ran a project in high school 15 years ago. I called it the K-Ties in the Classroom project, and I got kids to record my voice and the voice of a colleague, and they'd learn target language, and their homework was to listen to their phone. And that worked really, really well. And we got to the point very quickly where when we did listening tests, the kids were all getting 80% and more. And we ended up taking it down to 1 exposure, and they were still getting 80%. And then some of them, and we'd say, oh, have you listened to your phone? They'd say, no. And then you'd listen to them saying words, and they had beautiful Australian accents. So it was obvious they had been listening to them, but they didn't want to appear sort of, you know, they were trying to be cool, basically. But the beauty of putting this, I mean, you can just get the kids to get the phone out. Voice recording, it's very easy to find. You can do this in a synchronous or asynchronous setup. Just, okay, kids' phones, record. And then they can listen to it. They can practice in their own time. If those students want to practice reading along and listening, they can. It's so simple. And to me, it's a no-brainer, because I'm a musician who doesn't read music. So I always recorded things so that I could learn it, listen to it a couple of times and remember how to use it. So these documents are all, there's a link to them in the thing. There's designing for low vision. Use colors, put everything that you have on, everything on web pages. Use good magnification, it's incredibly important. And also the design of how you use sort of boxes, etc. And always look at how something's going to appear on screen. And that's something I think that possibly students have had a bit of a rough start with when during the emergency online phase. It's really important to check how your stuff looks from any kind of a device possible. Get your friends to check it. So you can see how this one here, this information's gone to the wrong place. And that does annoy me a lot because I use mine, I use it enormously. Okay, I want to also plug neurodiversity. This is I've got an article in the Mind Brain Ed think tank. I've got an article on ADHD dyslexia in there, and there's other articles, interesting articles by a range of people in that. That's part two of our neurodiversity series in the think tank, and part one also has similar issues. This is a great resource which you can get for free. It's from Oxford. It's called Inclusive Practices in English Language Teaching. It also has great advice for doing classroom things that will benefit students with neurodiversity. And a lot of these will apply to teaching in online settings as well. So, okay. All right, and let's go to, and lastly, this was made for me. This was made for me because I was doing the CELTA certificate, and part of my dyslexia is that I have a lot of difficulty with symbols, and I needed to be able to manage those symbols very, very fast and very efficiently. And so, so this was tailor-made for me by my friend Victoria Taylor. And I think it's pretty easy to pick up what some of that pronunciation is. There's a few mysterious things. And that one here, there's one over here. Don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but the one A was the name of one of my cats, Day. So it was easy for me to pick that one up. Koi is pretty easy to spot. The J sound is Joe, which is my friend's cat. And then mother and father, that's me and my husband and one of our kids in the bottom right-hand corner. But this was tailor-made for me so I could remember it. So I think this would be a really project if you were actually teaching pronunciation, if you were trying to teach phonics, is to get people to connect something to a sound that means something to them. Okay, I think I'm pretty much done there.
Okay, so as we go to open floor, everyone, please use the raise hand button in the participants list to help me remember who is going to ask questions in order. And as you're thinking of your questions, just because sometimes these recordings just go, as did the last session, very unpredictably because some idiot hit the leave meeting button, I would like to take this opportunity to ask you to open your mics, and let's give Alex a big round of applause.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic information. I think really, really useful, Alex. Adam and I think I can speak for Adam that we're both really proud, really happy that you came to speak with us for the OTJ summer sessions.
Thank you.
Okay, Bryce.
I'm very glad to be asked.
Okay.
Bryce, you're up first.
First question, this is more personally information oriented. I know you're a busy person. I know some people here do podcasts, and we've got an OTJ website up and running. I was wondering if you'd be available to do an interview sometime. Either podcast, or I could do an interview and post it on the OTJ website via Adam, things of that nature. And if time can be allotted for that, if you can recommend other people we should talk to in a similar line of knowledge and interest.
Yes, okay. I'm very happy to be involved in that, because I'm just so sick of watching people suffering because of their because of lack of understanding. And I'm on a number of boards. I read a number of boards and things, because that's the only way that you actually find out people's stories. And one of them that I saw recently was a woman who's now 50. She was diagnosed with dyslexia at she was diagnosed at 40, and she became a writer, and she's writing fantasy novels, and she's also a volunteer with a charity that she goes to schools, and talks to kids who are at risk of dropping out of school.
Right.
And she said of those kids that she talks to, 7 out of 10 who are at risk have never ever had a formal assessment for learning disability, because the parents don't want to talk about it, the teachers don't know how to raise it with the parents, the parents are not receptive, or the kid's not receptive, so they never get, nothing ever happens, and they just suffer. So there's a lot of people out there.
Yeah, I find that in my experience in the Japanese education system, even at private schools, be doubly so, because you can't, they're scared to raise issues with parents. And even one of my co-teachers from America, a lovely lady, she was a doctor, and she was all hell-bent on prescribing drugs to a kid, when, from what I've seen of him with one particular teacher, behavior management was actually the key, not drugs. For him to be able to excel with his situation.
Sorry, somebody said that that medication was not useful.
Oh no, this particular teacher said medication should have been the first thing used for this kid, but seeing his behavior with specific teachers, because I had him across 3 different subjects, behavior management was actually working really well with one of the teachers who knew how to interact properly in the classroom environment. So it's like sometimes people's expectations of what should be done first are done without thinking or without examining what the situation actually is. Drugs have their place in the scheme of the place of things. They have their place, but so does behavior management. And it depends on the individual.
Yeah, the science is on the basis. The science is on the side of the first thing that needs to be done is medication, and then once medication is in, then you can do behavior management in the kid, but then also you can look at the behavior management of people around you, such as the teacher. So where the teacher is being, oh, that's a bad kid, and coming at it from the angle of that is a bad kid that doesn't want to learn, that's when you have a problem. And so I always take I rule my behavior in class. I look at the most distracted students in the class, and when I can keep them focused and have them trying to come and sit closer to the front, I know I'm doing a good job. And I constantly remind teachers that, okay, well, when those kids get a bit wriggly, we're going to need to get them up and make them move, because they're suffering from a lack of physical activity, which is a big issue at the moment. So if you do have to go to a synchronous like the in-class environment, don't hand out papers and get them passed down. Put them in random spots around the room, make kids stand up and go and walk to them, and get kids to stand up at every possible opportunity. If you want them to discuss something as a pair, get them to stand up.
Okay. Question in the chat. Oh, I got you, Kumiko. Question from the chat. Gretchen, did you want to ask this yourself? I don't know if it was actually answered just by what Alex just said, but if you'd like to ask it yourself.
Yeah. The other day you were talking about, or we asked you at CTAR what teachers could do if they come across a student they suspect might be having some learning difficulties. And I know you just mentioned ADHD kids and getting them up and active. How about dyslexic students?
They basically, the teachers have an opportunity to interact with parents a couple of times a year, unless they try to initiate something more. What I'm hearing is that, what I hear from teachers is that you get a 1 to 3 year window from parents, and if the child is not reading and writing at normal level by the time the child is in year 3, then the parents are going to stop listening. So you've only got, and it's only with the first child, I suspect, because once the first child has had an issue with reading and writing, then the parents are going to be much more conservative about listening to the school in relation to child number 2 and 3. And the whole issue of being very embarrassed is going to be factoring in. If you can't get at the moment, it's difficult because there is very little known about what are good interventions in Japan. There's not enough information being taught to teachers yet about good practices for dyslexia. The Dyslexia Association has got a series of articles in a magazine called the Naikai Kyositsu. And there's 24 articles in that, which are very, very good. They're written by Eiko Todo from Dyslexia Association. And they talk about how to deal with dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. And also they have other suggestions on how to manage things. So I thoroughly recommend those in terms of a Japanese resource.
Oh, okay.
They might be publicly, like it's a journal, so it should be around. But in terms of, that's something that a teacher can do. But in terms of a specialist, like a specialist language teacher, it is much more, you know, you're on much, much thinner ground to be able to initiate that kind of a discussion.
Right.
I think there would be risks with that. I would say that the best thing you can do is to refer the teacher to whoever the supervising teacher is, talk to them about it, and try and give them an understanding of how hard it is for these students. Because I just don't want to hear these kids being talked about as not interested.
Right.
Okay.
And the bottom line is you have to assume that you're not going to be able to influence a change. So what you have to control is your classroom.
Okay.
So use the right fonts, use good colors, make sure your layout is set out well. Give your students for online, give your students at the bottom of your signature block, put just a few extra rows saying sample, here's what file naming looks like, and my hours are this, that, and the other, and if you need something, click here. If you need something, click there. Give them lots of breadcrumbs.
Okay.
Lots and lots of breadcrumbs, and give them examples.
Okay. Thank you. Perfect.
Yeah, I hope that's useful.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Kumiko, you're next.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I am very, very, very. I have a very basic question. So Japanese writing system is different from you know, English writing system. Does it make it easier for students to read those kanjis, because they're gonna separate, like, you know, the meanings, right?
What the kanjis?
Kanji letters.
Yeah, the problem for Japanese students is that if you have kids who haven't learnt hiragana and katakana, if they don't manage katakana is really the shapes in katakana are fundamental to learning kanjis. And if they haven't managed to grasp katakana, they're not going to be able to write very easily. And the Japanese studies I've read have shown that kids can be up to 1 to 2 years behind the rest of the class. Okay. And they had and they also, I'll dig that out. One of the studies also showed that the kids who had, they compared 12-year-olds, and they found that of the 12-year-olds, the dyslexic 12-year-olds were only able to write 25% of the kanjis that were shown to them.
Okay.
And so, and they weren't able to recognize katakana in a rapid naming test. So if you can't read katakana, you're going to have a lot of trouble with social studies. You're going to have a lot of trouble with lots and lots of instructions at school. So a lot of work needs to be done in that very, very first year. And one of the things that was a really good practice I saw at a school is this one. Let me just grab this up.
We have maybe about 5 minutes until,
okay.
No, not telling you, Alex, you take your time. But for anyone who wants to ask questions, maybe about 5 minutes. So if you do have a question to ask, John is next, but maybe time for one more, maybe two more, depending. Please raise your hand using the raise hand button in the participants list.
Actually, the first question was like leading up to my next question, because like, you know, a lot of students, especially like, you know, Jose, you talked about like Asian countries, like we don't mention about like, you know, students disability a lot, especially parents don't want to like recognize that, even they kind of know what something's going on, right?
Yeah.
But I was thinking maybe like is it like, you know, even like do Japanese kids have same kind of like effect from dyslexia? Because like, you know, our writing system is different, but like it's the same kind of like thing. They still have like, you know, problem reading because like, oh, the letters are jumping or like moving.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like here, I'll just go in on this. Can't find the thing that I wanted, but I'll let's go to the Here we go. Oh, I found it. Okay. So here is like here. This is dyslexia.
Okay.
And look what's happening to this. Look at this kanji. The goal is this shape, but what's happening is that it's disconnected. And when this child is writing, they're trying to write iro or kado. I'm not sure whether it's one or the other or both, but look what's happening to the shape. It's just literally it's disconnecting.
Right. Okay.
And so that's a big problem. And then when one of those kids is writing, when they're writing in another child writing in English, you can see what's happening here. The stuff is drifting up and down. That's an English thing. One of the nicest interventions I saw was with a teacher put, I asked them if they would put these things down near, this is for elementary 1. I said, please, can you put these down where the kids could touch them? And this has been pre-COVID, mind you. And so she did, she put these down, and then you can see from here, like the first one just went up as it was. But then you can see when she got to number 2, she started to write on them. So, and there's more and more writing. And so as she's been teaching them, there's been a dialogue. Definitely there's a dialogue going on here between her and the children, because she wouldn't be writing this information if the children weren't asking questions. So she's really annotated the whole thing. And I would go into that room and I would have lunch with the kids and I'd say, oh, how does that work? You know, oh, what's this one? And I'd start to accidentally do it the wrong way. And then there's this plethora of kids run over to show me the right way to do it and the right way to pronounce it. And they were all, and I would sort of watch to see whether the kids I would assume were likely suspects, whether they would be some of them. And some of these, the kids I wouldn't expect to enjoy reading would be in there trying to explain to me how to read. So this is, if anybody, like if you have any opportunity to influence teachers, please ask the elementary teachers to put this down at child height, not up in the back corner of the room behind them. And to put the current kanji, the current target kanjis should be on the wall right next to the door, preferably with glitter pen over them, so that the stroke order is really really easy to see. And if you had ideally I would be getting them to use something like here we go, let's go for owl, kanji for owl. I would be ideally thinking that people should be running this kind of a system on running that through a smart board, and then in parallel running the blackboard system with the colors and the numbers at the same time, so that when kids are actually learning that they've got these options to do that. I've seen Japanese ones, but generally they just keep playing once, whereas this one here, which is in imiwa, just goes round and round and round forever. So I found that to be really, really useful. So yeah, I'd recommend those things. And this is another strategy, which is bottle caps. So instead of doing, the ones I use are for English language ones, I use these ones. But a colleague sitting next to me, she decided to, okay, let's take this into Japanese, and she did. And so she set up a system whereby the student would try to make, oh sorry, that's upside down there, but she would write something down and get the kid to look for the combinations. And for certain children, this proved to be the best way for them to learn to memorize kanjis and compounds. So, any more questions?
John had one.
Thank you.
Okay.
John Helbig? No? Okay. Well, wow. Adam. Sorry, Adam.
Not exactly a question, but a quick sort of a funny little bit of commentary that came out of these OTJ summer sessions while I was building the website for it.
Yep.
At one stage, we asked Alex, hey, any thoughts on anything that's absolutely terrible about the website? And she said, well, that whole about thing at the bottom of the page, it was in serif font back then. And now it's not. So you've all got Alex to thank for that. She really told us off and made the whole thing a lot better. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. And my lead-in was actually in Open Dyslexic Alta. So yeah, thank you, Adam, for that. So,
that one came from, wasn't it Malcolm Swanson? You did a bit for the TLT or something,
yes,
right?
Yes, that's right. I did. Yeah, I did an article for TLT and which is here somewhere. In amongst my millions of things, I've got too many things. Here we go. You can see here. Oh, hang on a second. Let me just go back to screen share quickly. Sharing is paused. Okay, here we go. So this is my article. It's in the TLT in May, June 2020, and these the wonderful Mari Nakamura and Marian Hara who reined me in big time to get me to focus my ideas carefully on it. And one of the things I'd just like to bring to your point, this the not getting your learning issues sorted out is the Japanese school leavers, by the time, if they leave school early, by the time they are 25, there will be 68% of the boys will be smoking and 49% of the girls will be smoking if they leave school before finishing high school. And the consequences of that are chronic disease, and they're likely to have people are likely to have problems with tobacco and alcohol overuse. So it's it's very, very serious issue. It's not just the year that you've got the kids, it is it's their life. And we all need to see that we're part of this. We are part of, every one of us who is a teacher is part of a continuum from kindergarten, elementary school, junior high school, university, postgraduate, and then in daily life. We are all part of the food chain. Okay. So I thoroughly recommend that.
Wow. That was, I don't know how to use the word wow any bigger than wow to describe this. That was fantastic. Batch of information. And I think you've given us an awful lot to think about and an awful lot that we know that we have to adjust in our classrooms and in our teaching methods. I want everyone to open up their mics again and get ready for the last round of applause. Everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to OTJ, and thank you also to Sita Kanzai for inviting me to do the long presentation on Sunday.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Donna. Yeah, that was a really, really, really good experience. Really, really nice group of people. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please, you can find me via OTJ. And I'm hoping to get more information out there to people.
We're going to help you.
No question is too small or too silly. So
we're going to help you.
Thank you.
Because I don't know if Bryce was talking about OTJ's podcast or his podcast, but I'm definitely going to invite you to the D&J podcast that David Juteau and I run. And I want you to think about that. But I know you've had a busy week. You don't have to answer right now. Thank you very much for taking so much time out for us and for all of the places where you bring this information. It's great work, Alex. Thank you, everyone. It's been a great Wednesday, OTJ Summer Sessions, and I hope you come for the rest of the week, Thursday and Friday too. We got lots more coming up. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, OTJ. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.